Will UK rejection of Scottish gender bill bolster independence movement? London. When Scotland united with England and the Scottish Parliament closed its doors in 1707, it did not reopen until almost 3 centuries later, after pressure for more Scottish autonomy resulted in a deal in 1998 to share power between London and Edinburgh. 25 years on, that agreement, known as devolution, faces its stiffest challenge yet. Last week, for the first time, the British government overruled Scotland's parliament, scuttling its plan to make it easier for Scots to change their gender. The decision not only threatens to become a full-blown constitutional crisis over transgender rights, it also prompted angry claims by Scottish politicians that London was thwarting the will of their parliament, potentially handing pro-independence forces a potent weapon to galvanise the movement. Scotland's First Minister, Nicola Sturgeon, leader of the Scottish National Party and a champion of independence, described London's move as a full frontal attack on our democratically elected Scottish Parliament and its ability to make its own decisions. And Stephen Flynn, leader of the Scottish National Party's lawmakers in the British Parliament, claimed it portends a slippery slope toward direct rule from London. Yet some analysts say it is not at all clear that a dispute over transgender rights will bolster support for Scotland's independence. In the short term, it's not the silver bullet for independence, said John Curtis, professor of politics at Strathclyde University, though I certainly don't think it's likely that this is going to reduce support. Professor Curtis added, leaving aside the very fractious debate between the activists on both sides, amongst the general public, it's not a subject on which people care a great deal. The political fallout is unpredictable, he said, because there is limited public support for the transgender policy at the heart of the rift, with some polls showing a majority of Scots opposing the key proposed changes. The legislation approved last month by the Scottish Parliament would allow transgender people to have the gender with which they identify legally recognized and to get a new birth certificate without a medical diagnosis. It would apply to people 16 and older who make a legally binding declaration that they are already living in their acquired gender, according to the measure, and intend to do so permanently. Britain's Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, used a statute that dates to 1998, when the modern-day Scottish Parliament was established, to block the legislation, arguing that it was in conflict with equality laws that apply across Britain, not just Scotland. While Parliament in Edinburgh has powers over gender recognition laws, some equality legislation falls under the remit of the British Parliament in Westminster. Tension between London and Edinburgh is hardly new. Brexit injected an extra layer into the relationship, straining a convention under which the British government will not normally legislate on matters that are controlled by the Scottish Parliament under the 1998 devolution agreement. Since Britons voted to leave the European Union, a majority of Scots who voted opted to remain. Relations between Ms. Sturgeon and British leaders have oscillated between chilly and glacial. Never popular among Scots, former Prime Minister Boris Johnson, the main architect of Brexit, made only rare public appearances in Scotland, where his presence invariably attracted a throng of noisy protesters. Liz Truss, who succeeded him briefly, said her strategy was to ignore Ms. Sturgeon, dismissing her as an attention seeker. Mr. Sunak appeared to be on a smoother path when he recently had dinner with Ms. Sturgeon at a hotel in